Hi, everyone. As Christina mentioned, my name is Tammy, and I'm a growth consultant for North and South American app partners. This past year, we've been discussing and collaborating with partners on how to grow revenue in a competitive market. So today, I'm excited to be here and share learnings and insights with you. Now that we've learned about who, what, when, and where users are buying in our apps, in this session, I'll talk about the revenue strategies that can maximize buyer conversion and optimize total revenue. As Christina mentioned, the app industry is becoming more competitive. And while we still see growth, the median Q2 to Q3 growth rate of spend from top-performing apps was at 2% this year. In contrast, in 2019, the median growth rate of spend from top-performing apps at that time was at 8% for the same period. So even though there's an influx of competition, we can get back to a higher quarter-over-quarter growth rate. We believe you can continue to grow spend by deploying these three tactics. First, by being strategic with SKU packaging and pricing. Second, diversifying revenue models. And third, by identifying common use cases and creating buyer segments to target the right offer to the right user at the right time. So what are the revenue models for apps? I know most of you are familiar with these already, so I will run through them as a reminder. These are the 5 common revenue models we see implemented on Play apps today. Subscriptions with reoccurring payments, in-app purchases that are non-reoccurring, hybrid, my favorite, which is a combination of subscriptions and IAPs, paid apps, where users pay upfront at install, and lastly, ad-supported apps. I won't elaborate on ads today, as we'll focus only on Google Play data, but I do want to note that ad monetization is a viable way to earn indirect revenue, and we often see this implemented alongside other direct revenue models. So today, we'll focus our time on subscriptions and IAPs and the value of combining both revenue models into your app. When reviewing data of top-performing apps that offer either subscriptions and/or IAPs, 40% of total payment transactions come from subscriptions, while IAPs account for 60% of total transactions. When looking at spend distribution, 60% of total spend comes from subscription payments, while 40% of total spend comes from IAP payments. So it makes sense that subs account for more total spend, as they're typically priced higher than IAPs. However, it's important to note that from this holistic data, IAPs still make up a good portion of the total pie and should not be ignored when exploring new monetization strategies. As we learned from Christina, we see a meaningful number of apps offering both transaction types. In fact, almost 50% of top-performing apps now offer some combination of the two. And like Christina mentioned, categories such as dating, social, and comic book apps are more likely to support hybrid models. But we believe there's an opportunity to introduce hybrid revenue models across more categories. And here's why. Supporting multiple models can lead to enhanced growth. So let's take a look at the demand curve as an example, where on the y-axis, you have the SKU price, and on the x-axis is the number of buyers. The goal of incorporating multiple revenue models is to optimize the area under the demand curve. So depending on the complexity of what you implement, your strategy can enhance growth as long as you're deliberate about what you implement. So my goal today is to show you how you can fill in the shaded area under the demand curve. In other words, optimize for total revenue. Now that we understand where our buyers better, every user has a different use case, perceives value differently, and therefore has a different willingness to pay. Additionally, purchasing behavior and purchasing power differ by market and even within markets. So when implementing multiple revenue models, you can offer different packages that cater to unique buyer segments that have common use cases and similar willingness to pay. So what happens when you offer only one option? Offering one subscription SKU plan assumes one price fits all. And we know what happens when you only offer one thing. Most things don't fit everyone, and it doesn't actually cater to everyone. Nor does it fully fill in the shaded area under the demand curve. With a single SKU option, you will eventually reach a buyer cap, capturing only a fraction under the demand curve, and therefore leaving money on the table. So you can boost the number of buyers and total revenue by introducing new access tiers, adding multiple subscription lanes at various price points. This actually may be current state for many of you, but should we stop here? Or is there an opportunity to continue to fill in the remaining area under the demand curve? How about we try to draw in hesitant buyers by implementing standalone IAPs, and then add complementary IAPs, which can extract more spend from existing buyers. Incorporating multiple revenue models allow you the opportunity to fully fill in the area under the demand curve. And once we have all revenue models enabled, how can you create buyer segments that look at common buyer use cases and considers their willingness to pay to target the right offer to the right user at the right time? So before we dive into buyer segmentation strategy, let's look at some trends that subscriptions, IAPs, and hybrid revenue models. So we'll start with benchmarks for plan lengths and price localization of subscriptions. With Google Play Billing, you can offer subscriptions with recurring payments, installments, and prepaid plans. Today, the most common SKU plans and apps are monthly and annual subscriptions. In top-performing apps, annual plans make up 32% of total subscribers. Additionally, we're starting to see more subscription tier differentiation, where developers have parsed and bundled certain features in the app and are offering basic and premium plans at a range of prices. These tactics can also capture different willingness to pay and can influence buyer percentage and total revenue. So in terms of the number of subscription plans top-performing apps offer, 51% of top-performing apps offer 2 plan lengths, and an additional 22% of apps have at least 3 plans. However, there's still 27% of apps out there that offer only 1 plan length. Of these apps that only offer 1 plan, 60% offer the monthly plan. So if your app only offers 1 or 2 SKU plans, you might be leaving money on the table. And I encourage you to come talk to me later today so I can convince you to test 1 more additional SKU length. This chart represents the 25th to 75th percentile of the median effective cost per month buyers are paying for each SKU length in top-performing apps. So as you can see here, the 3-month and the 6-month SKU effective cost per month users are paying are closer to the monthly SKU price. However, when comparing the annual plan buyers are paying half the cost of the monthly SKU price. So if you're not already doing so, test discounting the annual SKU plan and advertise the deep savings from the monthly plan to incentivize users to commit to a longer plan length. For those who are hesitant to discount the annual plan by so much, analyze the buyer lifetime value of each plan length can be helpful data to help guide pricing on other plan lengths. Here at Google Play, we calculate LTV by taking the price of the SKU times the number of transactions users make on that SKU. The percentage difference highlights that even though the annual plan is at a heavily discounted price per month, the buyer LTV of an annual subscriber at the end of a 2-year evaluation period is higher than a monthly subscriber, and in some cases, valued at 100% more. Let's now look at the weekly plan. Currently, only 13% of apps offer the weekly plan, and buyers of the weekly plan are most concentrated in India, Indonesia, and the United States. The chart on the right shows the effective cost per month buyers are paying for the weekly plan versus the monthly plan. So in terms of cost per month, buyers of the weekly plan are paying 2.5 times the monthly price. Let's now look at the table on the bottom left, where the weekly plan, while the weekly plan is not as popular as the monthly or annual plan, the surprising thing here is that the weekly subscriber makes a number of repeated transactions. And in some categories, they pay for a month's worth of access. So this suggests that there's a use case for a weekly plan, and there's a willingness to pay without needing to provide a discount from the monthly price. This also suggests that once buyers see value in the premium access you provide, they'll renew their plan multiple times. Okay, so I know this table is an eye chart, so I'll describe it and summarize the takeaway. This table shows the median 2-year buyer lifetime value for social, dating, entertainment, and health and fitness categories. As a reminder, we calculate buyers' lifetime value by multiplying the SKU price times the number of transactions over a 2-year period. So these global LTVs are looking at a cohort of users who made their initial purchase 2 years ago. And intuitively, the 3-month, 6-month, and annual plan LTVs are generally higher than the monthly plan LTV, which further highlights value in supporting additional plans. Let's now look at SKU prices. The top chart shows the monthly plan buyers are paying in Brazil, India, Germany, and in the US. And the bottom chart shows the annual plan price in the same countries. We see about a 40% cost difference that users are paying in emerging markets like India and Brazil versus developed markets like US and Germany. To optimize revenue, ensure you're pricing appropriately for your priority growth markets. Consider willingness to pay, the cultural differences, and the prices of alternatives and substitutes in those markets. So let's come back to the demand curve. Let's say you now have added the new plan lanes, tiers, and localized prices I just suggested. Once again, you've reached a cap with the number of buyers and total revenue. So does anyone recall what revenue model we should add next? This is a good opportunity to extract hesitant buyers and maybe even extract more from existing buyers by introducing standalone and complementary IAPs. In 2023, we're seeing 2 times as many apps support hybrid models than we did in 2020. Here are some mock examples of how we see standalone IAPs implemented to attract hesitant buyers. I view standalone IAPs as access to features that do not require a recurring payment. Most IAPs are typically consumable, meaning the purchase amount is depleted with use. Common examples of IAPs include virtual currency in a comic book or social media app, a boosting or liking feature in a dating app, allotment of content or articles in a media app. Standalone IAPs can be sold individually, packaged as a bundle, and can be purchased multiple times. IAPs can be perfect for users who are not ready to commit and want to test our product before making that recurring payment. Complementary IAPs are similar, but can be stacked on top of an existing subscription. The use cases, it can be similar to the standalone IAP examples that I just mentioned. And the goal of having complementary IAPs is to give high-intent, goal-oriented users access to additional consumable features they find valuable. The chart shows that IAPs do not need to be low cost. The x-axis shows the price points from $1 to $35 or more, and the y-axis shows the percent of transactions for each of those price points. In top-performing apps, there's a meaningful number of transactions at the dollar price point. However, 40% of transactions are from higher-priced IAPs, above the $15 mark. This suggests that there's a demand and willingness to pay at various price points. In top-performing hybrid apps, most users purchase either a subscription or an IAP, as shown in the yellow and blue bars. However, 7% of buyers purchase both, as shown in the green. This might seem like an insignificant number of hybrid buyers, but let's look at the value they bring. Hybrid buyers who buy both contribute to 25% of total revenue. And as Christina mentioned earlier, their average revenue per paying user is almost 3 times that of a buyer who only buys subscriptions or IAPs. Hybrid buyers have high intent and are goal-oriented and see value in your product. This suggests that buyers will spend more if the option was available to them. So some things to keep in mind when you're incorporating IAPs. What is the cost of goods sold? For example, is there a licensing fee tied to the content? Does a feature or content have economies of scale? And how much are users willing to pay for it? Can you maintain a margin for each additional sale? Now think about where your paywall is. Today, most apps with IAPs don't necessarily have a hard paywall, and some access is free. It is possible to have a hard paywall, but make sure your users understand the value proposition even before downloading your app. And if you were to incorporate IAPs, would changing your paywall improve buyer conversion? Of course, cannibalization of a subscription business is always a key concern. Here's where I think about buyer segmentation. Can you segment users so that IAPs are only available to users who've declined the subscription? And then upsell the subscription once IAPs are consumed. And finally, this goes without saying, test, validate, and reiterate. Okay, let's say you've taken all my advice today and you have implemented all the offers I suggested. It's true that your users will run into a choice paradox, especially if they're like me, where too many options can overwhelm me, and then I'm unable to make a decision. I end up procrastinating, and I buy nothing at all. So how can you mitigate this risk with your users? Consider building a few buyer segments based on common use cases. Then target what you believe is the best offer to that set of potential buyers. The premise of buyer segments is that each user has a different use case, perception of value, and it has a different willingness to pay for that value. Let's run through an exercise of common use cases and buyer segments. Okay, say you have 3 users, all with different goals, wallet size, and intent. Jamie enters your app. She's a brand-aware, high-intent user with a high-end device. You know this because she came into your app organically, completed the onboarding process within the first day, and used a web account to log in. Then you have Charlie. They're also a user who downloaded the app organically on a mid-end device, but didn't finish the onboarding flow, took a while to create an account, and has opened the upsell page a few times, but never converted. And last but not least, Joe. Joe has downloaded the app via a referral link, likely from an ad, and is using a low-end device. He takes several weeks to finish the onboarding process. And he's already declined the subscription offer many times and never created an account. From his user behavior, we can infer he might be shopping around and looking at several apps to see which one fits his needs best. So, would you offer Jamie, Charlie, Joe all the same offer? Probably not. We could probably be more thoughtful and offer a specific SKU that caters to each of their needs. So what do you guys think Jamie will buy? Since she seems to have high intent, perhaps offering a premium annual SKU plan with a monthly discount is something she'll likely convert on. For Charlie, they may be a subscriber, but their commitment level is uncertain. So they probably won't convert on a premium SKU initially. Could they convert on a basic SKU with a 14-day trial offer instead? As for Joe, maybe we can assume he's not likely to buy a recurring subscription initially, as he's only interested in a few features. Is there a bundled IAP package he might be interested in? I do like to note that all SKU offers should be available to all users. However, optimize on buyer conversion, utilize buyer segmentation tactics to upsell the right offer to the right user. So you guys already do a great job surfacing upsell screens. How about personalizing the upsell screen and offering a custom SKU to each buyer segment? So what are some initial characteristics that you can gather from the user in the first week? Characteristics can include acquisition source, device type, locale, early retention and engagement metrics, and onboarding behavior. And don't be afraid to ask your users why they're in your app. As we learned from Christina, some users don't purchase within the first week, and 40% of users purchase a year or more after install. What can you infer from the onboarding to offer the best SKU that fits their needs so that your potential buyers not only purchase, but also purchase sooner in their user journey? Let's now transition to how this buyer segmentation strategy can be implemented on the back end. I like to think about SKU options in a form of a decision tree. So, for example, this might be similar to your base state today, where you have a monthly and annual plan with some backup offers. What could your revenue model decision tree look like when you add an additional SKU length, like the 3-month SKU? Include a premium tier at a higher price point, and add complementary and standalone IAPs. And when you've done all of that, where does Jamie, Charlie, and Joe fit into your decision tree? Can you implement a buyer segmentation strategy that maximizes buyer conversion by suggesting the right offer to the right user at the right time? And how can you dynamically move these buyer segments around the decision tree throughout their life cycle that maximizes buyer LTV? So to summarize, take these actionable next steps. Today, if you haven't done so, test new tiers, longer plans, and localized prices regionally. Tomorrow, introduce IAPs where possible. And in the future, understand your buyers. Think about the Jamies, Charlies, and Joes in your app. Gather signals to develop buyer segments based on common use cases and willingness to pay. Then incorporate an in-app lifecycle buyer segmentation strategy that makes your product more equitable for all and maximizes buyer conversion and optimizes for total revenue. I hope this session helps you think about the different ways you can optimize revenue under the demand curve and leave less money on the table. Happy to discuss revenue diversification strategies with you out on the playground later today. Thank you for your time, and see you out there.